RIU is centred around investment conferences, but the biggest market for us is resources industry. And if you think back to the end of 2014 and 15, there was a lot of pressure on the resources industry. The copper price was just struggling to get over $5,000 a tonne. It's now $9,500 a tonne. The nickel price, Jesus, that was $8,000 a tonne. It's $24,000 a tonne now. The gold price, $1,000. $2,000 a gram these days. Pressure was immense in the resources sector, to the point that when we would put our programs together, the company's got 25 minutes to present. That's how good we were going. We had to try and fill the day. These days, as you'll see with today's programs, 15 minutes, and our resources conferences, they get 15 minutes, some get 10 minutes, and there's 100 companies on a wait list. But at that time in 2014 and 15, with the pressure immense in the resources sector, getting people to come to investment conferences was one of the great challenges. And Stewie and I got together and I said, mate, we're struggling a little bit. And he said, well, we need to think outside the box. So we teamed up with Dave Tasker and we came up with an idea. Let's put a conference together that's different, that incorporates tech, med tech. And in October, 18th of October, 2015, in this very venue, we launched the first ever TechKnow Invest Roadshow. Any of you guys want to put your hand up and say that you were hit there on the 18th of October, 2015? Because I can see a couple of familiar faces, definitely. The smart ones, and I'm not going to ask you to leave your hand up, would have followed the footsteps of Brian Liebman's company, ResApp. When they got up here, they were 1.9 cents. And in those days, things were a little bit bleak for us, so the registration desk was just outside that door. And I was sitting there at the registration desk and people were walking out and they're like, could you buy me 150,000 ResApp shares? Could you buy me 1 million ResApp shares? I think, what the hell did that guy end up saying on the stage? By the end of the week, because as you know, TechKnow's a roadshow, so we were GoldCoast on the 18th of October 2015, we were Sydney on the 20th of October, and we were Melbourne on the 21st of October. By the end of the week, Brian happened to be catching the same flight back to Perth with us, and he had a big smile on his face because ResApp had gone over 10 cents. And as we know, they did an amazing job. They had highs of 55 cents, and they were bought out by Pfizer just recently in the last couple of years. So congratulations to that team. But we would have never had that opportunity to have been able to meet the people such as Brian and Tony from that company, give you guys an opportunity to hear those presentations. So we're very pleased that in 2014 and 15, there was a depressed resources market because it gave us this wonderful chance to build new relationships with a whole heap of different companies and build on a great database. So we're very appreciative to see so many of you here today. We're extremely appreciative of the support from the ASX companies in that tech and biotech space. That's my doorbell going off, which means that probably my youngest daughter's just taking our dog for a walk, because we are 2 hours ahead over here. But a conference like TechKnow wouldn't exist if it wasn't for our sponsors, and we're extremely lucky to have the Lynn Partners. That's an investment bank based in New York. Jeff Easton is not here. He's probably sleeping at the moment, given that he's in New York. So thanks to Jeff. And we also have Social Suite. They're like our ESG partner. And as you know, the ethical social governance is a very important component to all industry. And Brad and their team at Social Suite have been outstanding supporters, and they sponsor all of our events. And if you're still here later on today, which I hope you all will be, they will be putting on some nice drinks and allow our investors to network and engage with the presenting company. So enjoy the day. You wouldn't believe it, but this is the first time we've brought TechKnow back to this venue since that 18th of October 2015. And in the meantime, between that period and now, we've held 28 legs of TechKnow. So it's great to be back. Thanks for your support. Look forward to a busy day. Hand it over to the great Chrissy Morrissey, and look forward to chatting with you all at some stages.
Thank you. Thanks, Jaxon. Cheers, mate. It's interesting. Imagine if you'd invested in that tech and just...
Darwin landed on the Cocos-Keeling Islands. He described the beaches here as being hypnotic and heavenly. The Kimberley is a region of huge contrast, and every part of it is just so beautiful. And if you can, give yourself a bit of lead time, some planning time, so you can save some money, so you don't leave empty-handed.
Hello again. That is one of my spare little jobs that I have. I work and make a television show or a travel show for the Nine Network. I also work with a little company called Stockhead, and we do investment presentations. And I'm really pleased that a number of those companies that I have talked to in the last 6 or 7 months are actually here at TechKnow, because they're really exciting. And this is the sort of investment opportunity that I get excited about, because even if I didn't have $1 million to invest in a company, I look at them and think, good grief, these people are investing in my future. So I love this particular conference. It is one of my favourite, and I know that the potential of any of you leaving the room at any point today is going to be very, 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 very small. We've got 20 fantastic companies presenting. Jaxon pointed out Brian Leedman and ResApp. Don't we all wish we got onto that one? Brian was still telling me at the start of last year, Chrissy, I think you should buy some shares. Brian, go on, mate. You can't get any higher. It doubled last year. I was heartbroken. Did anyone actually invest in ResApp? You're not going to tell me because you've got a very large car and a house outside and you don't mind. Well, well done to you if you did, and well done to you if you've ever invested in any of those tech stocks that has just gone through the roof, the afterpays and all the rest of it. If you've made that decision to jump on the right one. So my job really today is to keep us to time, and considering it's 9:10 already, I should put my money where my mouth is and get my act together. So for those of you that are presenting today, it goes like this. You've got 15 minutes on stage. Technically, you've got 14 minutes on stage. I will stand up. 2 minutes, I will ring the bell. At 1 minute to go, I will stand up. And with about 10 seconds to go, I'll be your new best friend standing next to you on the podium. ASX means that I cannot stand right next to you, but I will be breathing very, very close to you. And I would love to give all of you more than 15 minutes, because the stories are worth more than 15 minutes, but that's what this conference is all about. It's about you connecting with our presenters, going outside, having a drink, having a cup of tea, and chatting with them and finding out more. And for those of you who are joining us online, you may not be here in the room, you will be able to get a hold of our presenters and have a chat with them by the phone if one would like to. Right, RocketDNA is starting off our project today, front and centre, down the front. Here he comes. Formerly Delta Drone International, and as the name would suggest, they're an ASX-listed company that uses drones and AI to automate operational workflows to create safer and more sustainable work environments. I've seen them used in defence. I've seen them used in agriculture. As a former farm girl, we've actually now got drones out on the farm checking when we're doing lambing and things like that. So the implications are massive. Let's find out about the story. Would you please make this gorgeous man very, very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, everyone, and good morning, and thank you, Christina. I think I might go a little bit slower just to try to offer about 15 minutes. You're getting closer here, so I'll give it a Good morning, everyone, and it's my honor and privilege to be the very first tech and mining stock to do a presentation for you at TechKnows this year. A little bit about our company, which I started over 12 years ago. It's a diversified technology services business underpinned with long-term services contracts with tier 1 and tier 2 customers. And our mission as a business, as RocketDNA, is to democratize drone data that empowers decision makers for a safer and more productive world. And what does that mean? Well, if you look at how satellites have really fundamentally changed the world and how they have access to geographical data, you know, we've been able to solve problems such as environmental and production factors and prevent floods and remove people from flooded areas. And where drones sort of bring into this intersection is that it's able to operate at a much lower level, thus higher resolution at a lot more frequent basis. And we've been able over the last couple of years, been able to achieve a lot of regulatory approvals, including beyond visual line of sight and sooner remote operations approvals as well, which is going to allow us to take these drones fully autonomous and then start sort of plugging into our AI data layers into them. A little bit about our company snapshot. So we're a 5.3 million valuation at the market cap. This is compounded with a revenues of 5.7 million. What's very interesting to note on this slide is our annual recurring revenue of 2.6 million, combined with our total contract values of 4.3 million. When we start, and I'll get into this a little bit later about what it means with our ARR and our TCV numbers, and how they've grown since these sort of values were published at the end of June. Our financial year end is December. Is that all these long-term contracts are, again, with these large tier 1, tier 2 customers that have given us anything beyond 12 months. There's a lot more revenue beyond this as well. So quite interesting. You kind of look at this as an interesting opportunity to really get into a stock that is effectively really cheap for the valuation of what it is, and the business has been around for over a decade, but we've just been on listed since about 2 years ago. What I can also share with you is some interesting news around our cap structure. We have no less than 5 microcap funds within our registry as well, so who hold close to about 36% of our registry. So we're very well supported by very well-known microcap funds, and we have a very engaged shareholder base. And this is really due to when we changed our name sort of earlier this year from Delta Drone, which was due to the exit of a large French shareholder. So it really opened up the space for a lot more local shareholding and engaged shareholders. As mentioned, our presence across the country. I'm originally from South Africa, now based in Adelaide, and we've got offices based in Perth as well as in Ghana and Accra, and predominantly focused on the mining industry, but we've also done a lot of work within agriculture and now focusing into the engineering sector as well. Our business model really looks at that full cycle of drone technology and how we deliver data and value to these mining and agriculture customers. It all begins with the data capture, how we combine this real unique mix of the hardware, the software, the licensing, the pilot, how we then take that data, process it, ensure that it's accurate, something that customers can actually measure and bank on, and then produce this into a quantifiable output or report that customers can use on a very frequent basis. And again, the beauty about drone technology is in comparison to satellites and manned aircraft is that you can fly them every single day, even twice a day. So when you're starting to monitor critical assets, when you're looking for water leaks, when you're looking for sort of thermal heat detection sort of problems, let's say along conveyor belts, when you're worried about bearings seizing up, right now a lot of those tasks are all being conducted very manually and or very expensively, using guys walking along sort of 10 kilometers of conveyor belts or sort of assets, which can now all be automated using drone technology. But how do you do that on a consistent basis? And that's what we offer to the customers and wrap that all up. Our unique sort of training elements at the bottom is really speaking to not only just the training which we give to the pilots and the operators out there, but as well as the AI software that we use on top of that. It's not just all about going out and capturing the data and processing it, but what is the insights that you can do? Because drones capture so much data so frequently and at this high resolution, we use AI, and specifically within computer vision, to actually then start making things a lot simpler for these decision makers to highlight where the problems will be. And I'll show you a couple of examples. Speaking to our financial highlights into our last quarterly, we were looking, if you're looking at the existing part of the business, up until this point, we've been a purely services business. We've really and that was again combined with a mix of taking a pilot, hardware, software, putting out on a mine site, signing up long-term contracts, and really sort of scaling the business over the last decade. But we are a growth company, and we are focused on not only growing and bringing new products to market, but ensuring that we're getting to a cash flow break-even position as well, which we've been tracking very nicely on. From our quarterly highlights, this has all been posted on the ASX as well, but something which I can highlight to you is that recently we've signed a new major contract with South32, which is not added into our quarterly results. It was just done post-quarter. But what I can share is that into our annual recurring revenue, which is focused on these long-term contracts, our new South32 contract, which is added over another, is added another significant amount of portion to total our ARR up to just short of $3 million, so about 4.5% up on the previous quarter, and our total contract values of $5.5 million now, including the South32 deal, which is 12.5% up on the prior year. So this really creates a business which is in a very unique position and a unique valuation, which has got all these sort of confirmed order books, and something even more than with our market cap as well. But also what's interesting is that ongoing annual recurring revenue percentage. So, and what's quite nice about this within our business is that you actually, because it's a contract business, doesn't suffer from these peaks and valleys as what a lot of project-related businesses do. It's a very sort of slow but very consistent accumulation of revenue over the years, and we've been pretty consistent in building that book over time. Looking at the breakdown of our revenue, now this is quite exciting. So when we're talking about the ARR and the TCV, I'm really only referring to that bottom half of the hamburger there, that sort of yellow graph, that 42%. Everything when we talk about long-term signed contracts, that's all there, but there's still another 60% of revenue to this business that we generate. And that's what really makes this business quite exciting and gives us the confidence to be able to grow and take on these new products and new projects, is that we've got the safety and security of these contracts to be able to pay the salaries and to build the business out, but we are able to also then go to customers and take on these new kind of projects and ideas and work with them to adapt that last little 10% of what they may need in terms of their drone data. Talking a little bit about our cash flow and our operating activities. So we're not profitable as a business, but we are very close to that and monitoring our net cash use and operating. You can see that we have quite a minimal sort of net cash burn. And again, it's really about the balance between being focused as being a growth stock, as well as looking at how we manage our cash. Saying that though, we've got over nearly about $2.5 million in the bank, and so at this sort of very small sort of burn rate, we can stretch this out as long as we need to. Sort of our last quarterly sort of puts this out at 10 quarters, enough of cash runway left in the bank before we would need to raise anything. Looking at the strategy, and I guess a lot of you will be thinking, well, how's this sort of related to me, and where does this really kind of make sense as a stock within my investment portfolio, and the sort of general macroeconomic market at large. What's really sort of interesting to state is that mining is in a productivity crisis. You've got a scenario where, look, according to the ABS, it's in terms of its labor input costs, its investments into the market, what it's getting in terms of its output is really not there. And the market and the sort of the horizon doesn't look any clearer for mining companies. And I'm sure a lot of you feel, what is really the answer here for these mining companies if input costs are only rising, labor costs are only getting higher or more restrictive, and investment capital is and all grades are only getting less, and investments are only getting lower as well. And the answer really to that is technology. And this is how we help in the strategic initiatives that we're focused on in addressing these concerns within the mining space. First of all, we've signed up with a lot of partners, especially within the AI space, and how we integrate AI into our drone data analytics and tools and the outputs as well. And this is something we're going to continue in working on with our customers in deploying these AI tools within their business. Now, a lot of you think, well, AI is quite a sort of a broad, big concept. It's very sort of far away, but AI has actually been around with us for a very long time. It's only because of introductions of new products like large language models have now become very relevant and very accessible for, so let's say, the common person on the ground to be able to interact with AI. But we've been using this, especially at a mathematical and a visual level, for a very long time, using computer vision models to solve and detect problems at scale. And now what's even more exciting is we're bringing to market our autonomous XBot solution, which has been a technology around for a very long time, but previous price points were in the millions to hundreds of thousands. And we're now bringing this unit to customers where it only costs you $5,000 a month. And when you're deploying these units, you are not only able to take people out of these dirty, dangerous and very boring roles and tasks of manual inspections and surveying, but you're then able to redeploy them as remote operators as well. And actually using the power of AI, you can actually then get them to only focus on the areas which are red or yellow and not so much worry about the green. So at a visual sort of basis, these are some of the tools which we deploy using AI and our drone technology. Some of them be within stockpiles and inventory reporting. I'll show you a little bit about how the high-wall AI looks, as well how we're saving lives and helping identify very key risk areas. A really great areas on the drill and blast, which is not only just measuring and doing fragmentation on the products, but actually doing the forecasting. So in other words, before you even press the button and you spend all the money on all those explosives, we're able to tell you what your muck pile, what your fragmentation will look like. And for those of you who are quite interested in how fragmentation impacts mining production, it's all about getting to the right fragmentation size so that you're not, it's not being, large rocks are being ingested in the crushers and sort of shutting down the production and unnecessarily damaging it. You're also looking at the haul roads optimization. Can two trucks pass by one another? Are the windrow heights at the correct height? A lot of these safety concerns, which are all done very manually to today. I'll leave this up for you again to go have a look in terms of a lot of the areas in which we touch, but a quick sort of idea. This is some of the things which AI can really help quickly speed up and simplify. Again, it's this traffic light system, the red, green, yellow. Where do you need to go focus? What do you look? These are exactly the products and the outputs that we're producing to our customers every day. This is our pit comply product, focusing on pit conformance. This is our road sense product, again, focusing on the haul roads and haul road optimization. As a quick example, the better the gradient that you have, the less diesel that you use, the more efficiency you get out of your trucks. These are really great, interesting outputs that mines are starting to look at every little bit of cost saving into how to increase the productivity of their mines. And maybe the last thing just to leave with you again, just as a sort of a closing. So we've got again, as RocketDNA, we've got a market cap 5.3 million, revenues of nearly 6 million, ARR of 3 million, and the TCV of 5.5 million, and with 42% of that all recurring. And I really thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Christina. Thank you, everyone.
Christopher, thank you very much. And I do realise that I didn't tell everyone your name as you got up here today. So it's Christopher Clark. Obviously, it's on your program, but go out and have a chat with him afterwards. Why did you change from Delta Drone to RocketDNA for a name?
Yeah, so we with the exit of the French shareholders in Jan, we kind of took this opportunity to rebrand the business. DNA is a bit of a play on words in terms of the drones and the automation. So yeah, we just wanted to, we're now sort of like say a fully Aussie-owned company, so we don't don't have any like sort of large foreign sort of shareholding anymore. So we wanted to take the opportunity, just to expand on that. Thanks, Christina.
Great little name, quite an inspirational name. Would you put your hands together, please, for Christopher, starting us off for our conference? How many of you in this room have a few hearing issues? I'll put my hand up. No? So how are you going with actually listening to our speeches so far today? Are you okay? Yes? All right, just let us know if you're not, and I'm sure we'll increase our tech as the years go on as well. I actually wear hearing aids myself. They're worth $9,500, these little hearing aids, so they want to do their job really, really well. But when we're coming over on the plane, I've got my little Bose headphones over the top of it, and all I got was this squealing back into my Plurry hearing aids. It was really annoying. And when you do have hearing challenges, of course, it affects the way that you get to enjoy the world around you. So this next presentation that's coming up on stage, I was really interested to hear a little bit more about. Audeara is coming up on stage. Their listing number is AUA, their code. And they specialise in innovative listening solutions for people like me with hearing challenges, but also for people in general to increase the joy they get out of listening, out of hearing. This fellow here is Dr. James Fielding. He is their co-founder. He's also the MD, and the company is on the verge of global domination. Well, they're going out there anyway. They've got, with multinational audiology groups at the very least. They're launching a licensing platform for their tech, and that will drive their growth. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone?
Thanks so much, really appreciate that. And I really appreciate everyone coming out. It's a real honour to have the chance to tell our story, and I've really enjoyed the conversations that we've had so far this morning. Some really great interest, and I look forward to the rest of the day. So at Audeara, we are a hearing health technology company that is driven by our cutting edge and proprietary technology that leverages two really distinct business models that are complementary and driving our growth. The first is as Audeara. And as Audeara, we sell tailored listening solutions in audiology clinics. You put on the headphones, you do a hearing check, we show you the results, and then we use the result of your individual hearing profile to ensure you are getting the best possible entertainment solution. That gives us the right to be stocked in nearly every audiology clinic in the country, and we've launched internationally alongside 3 of the globe's largest audiology clinics, and we're on the verge of mass expansion through those clinic groups. The other side of our business is using that core technology and leveraging it alongside the go-to-market power of large international brands. And we have our first products coming to market that will be utilizing that contract manufacturing and licensing technology. The consequence of that is continued year-on-year growth in our core business model. Most recent quarterly announcements were showing up 23% year-on-year and up 40% quarter-on-quarter, with cash receipts and revenue at record levels and continued year-on-year growth. The key highlights in Audeara were the launch in Austria and Hungary alongside WS Audiology and Demont, as long as both of those groups, WS Audiology and Demont, in the USA. We also had record quarters with our audiology business in Australia. And for the AUA technology side, we are making vast progress with our in-ear design of our technology, which is being co-developed alongside the largest hearing aid retailer in Taiwan, who also has a base in China, as well as one that we're really quite excited about, which is our licensing and contract manufacturing for one of the world's most respected music industry brands. As you can see here, our continued growth has been driven by our core Australian wholesale business, which is providing our headphones to audiology clinics for them to sell to people coming to their clinics. And we do so under the Hearing Services Program, the Department of Veterans Affairs Rehabilitations Program, and the NDIS. So the majority of people who are getting the benefit of our products are doing so with no out-of-pocket expense, thanks to the incredible government support we have here in Australia. But what you can see at the top of those graphs is the introduction of these additional revenue streams, and what we have as our growth catalysts are the expansion and impact of those additional revenue streams to ensure our continued growth. So focusing now on Audeara and our personalized sound technology for the audiology industry. As I said, we make headphones that have our hearing check inside. Every person hears differently. Every person's left ear hears differently to their right. And as a number of you in this room have shown, people are taking action to address that, but not as many as should. And for many people, their choice for hearing aids isn't their complete solution. So we position ourselves in audiology clinics as an on the way to, or as well as, your existing hearing solutions. And why we do that is to address the needs of our biggest customers, who are in fact the audiology clinics. They are who are driving our B2B growth. And the reason they see value in us is that we can increase the lifetime value of their customer base, and ensure purchases are made quicker. From the latest research, it's suggested that on average it takes around 10 years from a person to be identified as having a hearing loss to taking action about it. And we're trying to get in early to ensure people are taking positive action now and not waiting until it's putting a strain on their relationships before they're doing something about it. The primary value that we offer in our bundles in clinics is as a TV listening device. And it may seem relatively innocuous to have a TV listening device, but 80% of people walking into audiology clinics name listening to the TV as their biggest challenge. And so we're able to go in and provide those quality solutions, which mean we become a partner with the clinics and are driving their growth, which drives our growth. As you can see, growing alongside these partners is an incredible opportunity. Hearing loss is affecting 1.9 billion people, according to the WHO, and on the other side of the equation is almost 1 billion people that will become newly affected by hearing loss under the age of 30 because of noise-induced hearing loss, which is a hearing loss that is preventable if you take preventative actions or avoid situations where you're likely to incur that hearing loss. Now, the people that are servicing that health impact of hearing loss are large multinational audiology clinics. And in Australia, we have representatives of all of those multinational clinic groups. We have partnered with those groups in Australia, have proven up the value of the product and the technology to those clinics, and as a consequence are being launched internationally alongside these enormous clinic partners. And what we've done to date is secure stocking in 7 countries on the base of having secured stocking in all of the clinics in Australia. We have Taiwan launching with clinics. We have Singapore, where we've recently secured a stocking agreement with Amazing Hearing. In the US, the growth is driven by Demont and WS Audiology. And then in Europe, we have our first impact with WS Audiology in Austria and the Demont Group in Hungary as a basis for expansion throughout the EMEA region. Looking at AUA technology, what we're talking about is the innovative technology solutions that we have developed, as well as the product development capabilities we have to allow large third-party brands to be driving that go-to-market using our technology. And what we like about it is it is an inherently scalable model. So our R&D team is developing world-class and cutting-edge technology that makes its way into our Audeara product suite to be supporting the growth of the audiology clinics. And now, for the first time since the company's inception, we are going to be utilizing that technology in a scalable, high-growth way into third-party brands. I'd like to tell you about a couple of them now. The first, and one that we're very excited about, is a partnership that we developed with Taiwan's Clinico Inc., the CEO of which became a strategic investor of ours in December at a 20% market premium. And that was on the basis of the vision that he saw, because he's in the industry, and we are now co-developing a product to meet the needs of his clinics in his market in Taiwan. And this will be the first time that our technology is being deployed in an in-ear form factor as a PSAP or healthy hearing bud. So it is not a medical device, it is not held to the same restrictions as a medical device, but it is being sold and positioned into a health space where people who know they have a problem can get the benefit, and people who are trying to protect their hearing can utilize the technology to be aware of what their hearing is doing. And why we're excited about this is that the product development is specifically meeting the need of a strategic investor and a large B2B partner, which gives us great confidence that that product is going to be a very strong additional revenue stream. Originally, we were developing over-ear headphone technology to sit alongside a hearing aid, so you can use our headphones over the top of hearing aids and tailor them up so that the sound profile is optimized for use with a hearing aid, which is quite exciting. But we stayed away from the in-ear technology because we didn't want to be seen as a threat to our audiology clinic partners. Our technology is algorithm-based. We control hardware, software, and firmware. We have the capability to put our personalization technology into any shape or design or form factor that we like. And we made the business decision to avoid the in-ear on the back of the advice we were having from our primary customers that were driving our growth. So to have one of those customers, who is now our strategic investor, say, this is the product we like, this is where we see the gap in the market, this is where we want you to be deploying your technology, it gives us great confidence in the impact that that's going to have on our growth. The other one that I'm really excited about is our first deployment of the technology into a consumer-focused space. And as a new brand and a growth startup, our brand recognition is nowhere near as strong as this partner of ours. They're a leader in the global music instrument space, and they are using our product development, our personalization, and our manufacturing capabilities to bring a novel revenue stream under their brand. And what we like about this model is that we're using our technology, we're encouraging people to understand the importance of their hearing and their understanding of the impact of a personalized sound on their experience. But the sales, the go-to-market, the top-line revenue will be driven by an incredibly well-established global brand, and we take a clip of the ticket on every unit that goes through. So they order 5,000, great. They order 20,000, great. They order 100,000, great. And that is why we're really excited about this as a growth catalyst. We have our innovative product pipeline that is driven by that really strong R&D capability that we have as a company. So on the roadmap to reinforce our existing distribution chain is updates to the technology in the over-ear form factor that is so well established and pushing out into international clinic groups. We have the first development of the in-ear form factor, and we have our licensing and go-to-market with third-party brands. So what we see looking forward, as I've said, and to reinforce, is that the two streams of our business are both growing in the way that they are designed to do. Our B2B wholesale audiology business is being driven by international expansion alongside global leaders, and our AUA technology is going to be launching our licensing go-to-market under really powerful third-party brands. And we look forward to having you on that journey. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fielding. That is very interesting. I've recently chaired the Alzheimer's conference as well, and one of the things that they kept saying and reinforcing is that untreated early onset hearing loss is a big precursor to dementia, early dementia as well. So your hearing is really, really important. One, and this is great, I love the thought that I can actually enjoy my tailored sound. My mother actually has a pair of the ones to listen to the TV right now, so she's an early adopter of your tech. Would you thank him very much, please, everyone? And go and have a chat with him afterwards. Right, our next company on the stage is speeding up the process that detects those nasty little parasites that can infect your gut and make life very unpleasant. And they're operating in the molecular diagnostics market. Now that market is slated to reach $28.6 billion in the next few years. So it's a rapidly growing market. The stock that we're going to hear from is Genetic Signatures, and they're about to submit their very first FDA application, which is going to open up the USA for this little company. Dr. John Melki is the gentleman here. He's going to walk us through the opportunity, its upside, and let's see if he convinces us all to jump on board before they actually put in that submission. Please make him welcome.
Thanks so much. A pleasure to be here to tell you a little bit more about Genetic Signatures. We're a molecular diagnostic company. We're 22 years old and we're focused on the better detection of infectious diseases. Why infectious diseases? Because they're a leading cause of death. But inherently, they're preventable deaths. If you had tools that are better able to detect the infection, you'd be more rapidly able to commence treatment or isolation as appropriate. So we know that one class of bacteria causes 10 deaths per minute globally. So before I'm kicked off the stage, that's almost 150 deaths around the planet just from an infectious agent. So how we do it? We do it through a patented technology developed here in Australia. It's called 3-base, and really it's designed to make organisms more similar to each other. It makes them easier to detect, and the technology itself is inherently able to detect even when there are mutations or variants in the organisms that we're trying to detect. So many of you would have heard about the SARS-CoV-2 COVID variants. Our technology is really able to overcome those genetic changes. So it is an investment conference, so the investment highlights are that we do have a proprietary technology. It's unique to us. No other molecular diagnostic company in the world can use this. It's protected with multiple patents. As I said, it simplifies the detection of these infectious agents, and from a single sample, we're able to detect multiple targets. It's what we call multiplexing. We can detect more with fewer reagents. We have had strong commercial adoption. As I said, we're over 20 years old. We've been in the Australian market for some time, but we're expanding now into those bigger markets of Europe and the US. We already have 4 diagnostic test groups cleared in some jurisdictions. There are 5 more coming. We're expanding our distributor network, and importantly, we're about to submit our first application in the US. We have had strong underlying growth in our revenue, 17 million last year, and 75% of that revenue was from our syndromic test kits, not COVID testing kits. We did benefit from COVID, but we existed a long time before COVID and did this, many years and a decade before anyone had even heard about COVID. So in terms of investment, we do have multiple drivers for growth. The commercial expansion is one, going from a jurisdiction that's 1 to 2% of the world market into Europe and the US to combined, which is 75% of the global market. We have new products coming through the pipeline. They all work in exactly the same way, so we're able to leverage our customer base with new products, and we also develop instrumentation, which again embeds our 3-base technology into the labs. So a very quick snapshot of the company, market cap of 87 million, which for a global supplier of molecular diagnostics is perhaps on the low side. It might be why there's been some recent research. It's on our website. Some of those have target prices of over $2. In terms of shareholders, Chris Abbott of Maple Brown Abbott, which many of you would know or know of, owns about a quarter of the company, just given that he was a founder of the company and financed us single-handedly for 16 years before listing. But very happy to have support of Perennial, Fidelity, Thorney, and others on the register. So I talked about our technology. It's something we're very proud of. They tell me I shouldn't talk about technology at these kind of conferences, but as I say, it is unique to us. And if you will indulge me for a minute, I would love to tell you about it, because I'm sure you know about DNA, and it has 4 letters in its alphabet. It's A, C, G, and T. That's the 4-letter alphabet. What you may not know is that the C letter is pretty unstable. It often mutates and changes to that T letter. So in nature, you see a lot of those changes. In fact, in SARS-CoV-2, in some areas, 90% of the mutants are C to T. So our scientists thought, what would happen if we could force that change? So we'll just change every C to a T. And this is a real example here. This is human papillomavirus. It causes cervical cancer. And these are just 3 variants of human papilloma, a very small part of the genome. This one up here has 2 Cs, the one in the middle, they've all converted to the T letter. This bottom one has 1 T letter, one is still a C letter. So once we do our 3-base conversion, they're all identical. So we're able to detect all 3 of these with one test, if you like. So it's another way, if you're not familiar with DNA, is just spelling, US spelling, Australian spelling. We often use an S, and those in North America use the Z or the Z. The word realize, if we could change the S or the Z to an S, and did a word search would be able to pick up both variants of that word, rather than having to search for both variants separately. So I hope that was clear. I say we've been well adopted. I am a scientist, so I do like to evidence a lot of things. Before I do that, I'll just tell you the type of tests that we make and then show you how the market adoption that we've had. So hopefully with the tech you could see that we're able to detect groups of organisms quite simply, and it lends itself to what we call this syndromic testing or multiplex testing. So unfortunately we're all familiar with the symptoms of gastroenteritis or respiratory illness, the causes of which are many, and what our testing strategy allows us to do is look for all of the potential causes or most of the potential causes in effectively one sample. So if for respiratory illness, we can look for the top 15 causes. Yes, it will include SARS-CoV-2, it will also include flu A, flu B, but there are many more that can cause exactly the same symptoms. So Genetic Signatures has developed well over 100 tests. We're able to combine these in different ways, which allow us to put out what we call syndromic test kits. So we sell these to pathology labs, they're our customer, and they use this every day on every specimen that comes into their lab. So we don't do the testing, we're simply a medical device supplier. So in terms of evidence, there's nothing better than revenue to show what your uptake has been. This is showing our most recent year compared to the 4 years prior to that. We did have a win with COVID, there's no question, but what we were able to do is leverage that opportunity to expand our customer base. And really there's only two things I want you to take away from this. One is that this revenue of this financial year has been predominantly our syndromic test kits. There's very little COVID-only testing in that. In fact, 80% of our last quarter was all syndromic test kits. The other part I want you to take away is an underlying growth of our core business. So it's not like we had a sugar hit with COVID and went back to where we were in 2019. So they're two very important things which really sets us up for success. And as I said, I do like to evidence most things I say, and this is the fairest way I thought I could evidence this, is just to show what did the half year before COVID look like compared to the equivalent half year of the year just passed. And you can see there's a 61% growth rate. And that really speaks to our ability how we leverage the COVID opportunity for a company like us. So we did expand into Europe, we did expand into labs that we weren't into in Australia, and then transitioned them into this syndromic testing or multiplex testing. In terms of product mix, these are the last 8 quarters. COVID-only sales are in light blue. Our syndromic test kits are in dark blue. And I think it's quite easy to see here that COVID-only sales are really a very small percentage of our sales at the moment. So we're back to core business and making and selling these kits, which can detect a large number of organisms, as I say, in effectively the one test, the one patient sample. We're excited for a number of reasons, really because the majority of our revenue came from tests that can pick up respiratory or gastrointestinal infections. But we have a lot of kits coming through the development pathway. They all work in exactly the same way. I mentioned hardware, they all work on exactly the same equipment. So when we do release a new test, existing customers are very likely to adopt them. You can see here most of our regulatory clearances are in, well, all of them are in Europe and Australia. The US is the biggest market in the world. It speaks for maybe 40%. And we have our first product that has finished clinical trial, and we're just putting the finishing touches on the application before we submit to the FDA for clearance for sale. I would like to spend a couple of minutes just talking about that because it's an incredible opportunity for our company. So we did identify an unmet need in the US, and this is looking at stomach bugs, or in particular stomach parasites, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, etc. The traditional way of doing this test is to look down a microscope, and you need to spot the protozoan cysts. The test takes more than a week to report. The reimbursement rate in the US is in the tens of dollars, and it's incredibly inaccurate, 50% sensitivity. So it's like flipping a coin. You don't actually need to do the test. So a lot of infections are missed. We're coming to market with a molecular test that picks up 8 of the most common gastrointestinal parasites. It's done in a day, results can be reported the same day, and the reimbursement code for the lab is $260 US. So it's a very different way of approaching these gastrointestinal parasites. And that's why we're excited. That's why we're excited that we finished our clinical trial and just preparing for submission now. In terms of market preparation, we do have webinars, key opinion leaders on our website. We have a direct sales and marketing team in the US. We have warehousing in the US. Effectively, we're ready to go. So I think I've covered most of this, is that we're ready to go, but it's just that the final reports are really being written now, and then we file the application. The FDA say they need 90 days for review, so we anticipate being in the US market very, very soon. We're not stopping there. The next product for the US is already in clinical trial. It's for respiratory infections. This is a much quicker trial because we have a predicate device that has all of our targets. We're already 80% complete in that trial. So we're very much looking forward to having our 3rd and 4th cleared tests in the US. I did concentrate on the US, but we are in Europe as well. We've made some recent hires. The most important is expanding our distributor base in Europe. We've just appointed, well, EMEA, we've just appointed 2 distributors to cover off the Middle East and Israel. We're at the biggest trade shows, as you might imagine, with big, beautiful displays. It's a pleasure to be at and represent this Australian company. So in terms of growth initiatives, we've done very well in our home base. It's to leverage that experience into Europe and into the US. It's to build and expand our product base. That's our revenue generating medical device. I haven't gone into the pathway, but it's extensive. It's to embed our 3-base technology into their workflow. Once they do 3-base, once 3-base is in their lab, every sample gets used with our test. And as I said, any new test, the uptake is really quite high because they're already trained. They all work in exactly the same way. I haven't had a chance to go into instrumentation, but a very big investment for the company is a next generation sample to result instrument. Literally put a clinical sample in one end. It will do 3-base conversion, purify, amplify, report the results to the hospital system. And we should have our first alpha prototype of that in February of next year. So the upcoming milestones are pretty obvious. As given what I've said, the US filing is key. It's imminent. We're very excited by that. We're increasing the sales and presence into Europe, the Middle East, and distributors being appointed, as I said. Finishing the trial for the 2nd product and then letting the market know what our 3rd and 4th products are, and continue to invest in our R&D. We are, at the end of the day, a technology company. We believe our technology can help in many areas. We're focused on infectious diseases, and once we're able to develop an instrument, I think really many labs would welcome this 3-base technology. So I didn't see you give me a 2-minute, but I'm done.
Is there anyone wanted to ask a question at all while we've got 2 minutes up our sleeves? You can always go and grab him outside at the booth during the day. John, that was really interesting. Thank you so much for that. Would you please thank Dr. John, everyone? That, you got 4, oh, you did very well. I'm impressed with you. You're scientific. You do things methodically. That data I got, you know where I said that the molecular diagnostic market is going to be worth 28.6 billion in 2028. I got that from Markets and Markets. So it's currently worth 16.6 billion. Going up to 28.6 in 2028. So that's a really, really fast growth in that particular market. Next up, a company behind a novel treatment that could change outcomes for stroke victims and deliver significant value to both patients and investors. Argenica's neuroprotective drug, you can come up, you can jump that way. We didn't put, yeah, you have to come past me. This is Liz Dallimore. She's very good, but she doesn't do high jumps. She does other things really, really well. So Liz is actually the CEO and also the MD for Argenica. And the drug that we're talking about is ARG-007. It aims to limit brain cell damage after stroke and other types of brain injuries. Would you please make Liz very welcome?
Thanks for the warm welcome, Chrissy. And it's fantastic to be here. This is my first TechKnow, so really delighted to share the Argenica story. We're slightly different company from what you've heard before. We have no revenue, but I think that's a good thing because the potential for revenue is absolutely huge in this market. So I'll just give you a bit of a snapshot of Argenica. We listed 2 years ago, so June 2021. We are a clinical stage drug development company now, so we are developing novel drugs that are able to protect brain cells following brain injury. So the first indication or application of the drug that we're going after is in ischemic stroke. So this is where we've got the majority of our preclinical data. So we're pushing into a phase 2 trial in that indication. But we are really interested in other neurological conditions, which I'll touch on a little bit later. They are still in preclinical development, but again, huge opportunities. So as I said, we're really going after large markets with huge unmet medical needs. So there are currently no drugs on the market that are able to protect brain cells when you have a stroke, when you have a traumatic brain injury, or even universal drugs that are able to protect against neurological conditions such as, or neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease. So the way that our drug works is really unique in that it's working on multiple different pathways of what happens when a brain cell dies. And this is really important in getting these drugs to market and working in a more comprehensive way. And because we're going into a phase 2 trial, so we're about to test our drug in humans that have had a stroke, we're starting to get a huge amount of interest from global pharma companies. So drugs is where pharma makes all their money. These are huge markets. They're looking for blockbuster drugs. So diagnostics devices are good, but it's really the drug market that is that really big sort of opportunity for these pharma companies. So as I said, we listed in June 21. We've been really busy. So we were a preclinical company, meaning we hadn't actually tested our drug in humans at that stage. So we've managed to, in that 2 years, progress all the preclinical work we needed to do to get our drug into humans. We've undertaken a phase 1 trial in healthy human volunteers where we've shown that the drug is safe, it's well tolerated, and we've built an exceptional team really to help us progress through these clinical trials. And in doing that, we've managed to generate some pretty significant value for shareholders. So 90% increase from our listing share price in 2021. So just some key company metrics. So we recently did a $4 million raise. We've got about 9.3 mil cash in the bank and another couple of mil coming through from our R&D tax rebate. So really well funded to progress our phase 2 trial. So in terms of the strategy of the company, we do really sort of reserve the cash that we raise through the market for that phase 2 stroke indication. And then we've managed to attract over $4 million in non-dilutive funding, and that's to progress those other preclinical indications. So they're all funded by grants. We're sitting around a 36 mil market cap at the moment, so pretty cheap. If you want to look at a comparator, you can look at Neuron, which is a similar peptide drug, neurological indications. They are now worth $1.2 billion. So I'll just talk about our lead drug candidate. It's known as ARG-007. Key things to, I guess, to sort of really take away here is, as I said before, the drug works on multiple mechanisms of action. A lot of the drugs going through the clinic at the moment are working only on a single pathway in that brain cell death, and they're not having fantastic efficacy. So they're sort of safe. They're kind of showing a little bit of efficacy in terms of functional outcomes, but they really are limited to just that one target. What we know about neurological conditions is that they're multifaceted. So they're really complex. There's obviously often a lot of downstream cascade signaling that happens when the brain cells start to die. And any drug really does need to work on a combination of these pathways. We own all the patents in the company. So the drug has had 10 years of preclinical development, out of the Paraneuroscience Research Institute and the University of Western Australia in Perth. So we have done a lot of that legwork already to get it into the clinic. And by having all that preclinical efficacy data, it really de-risks the asset. And that data is published in peer-reviewed journals, and we have over 25 peer-reviewed publications, which is pretty phenomenal for I guess, an early-stage biotech company. And one of the biggest de-risking milestones is showing that the drug is safe in humans, which we've recently done. So I'll just explain how exactly the drug works. So if you were to have a stroke, and I hope none of you do, but statistics-wise, a couple of you in this room will, you will either have an ischemic stroke, which is caused by a blood clot in the blood vessel in the brain, or a hemorrhagic stroke. They both present the exact same way when the paramedic arrives and the symptoms that you're presenting. So what we're talking about here is ischemic stroke. This makes up around 85% of all strokes. So when you have a clot in the blood vessel in your brain, you're stopping that blood flow to that part of the brain. The brain needs blood flow because blood delivers oxygen, and brain cells can't last very long at all without oxygen. So they start to die. So you get an immediate sort of area of brain cell death. What then happens, because every brain cell talks to each other, is you start getting this proliferation or cascading out of cell death. And there's a saying in stroke that time is brain. So time is of the essence. And for ischemic stroke, the treatment really is to get to the hospital as soon as possible to remove that clot. So what this drug does, what we've shown in that extensive amount of preclinical work, is that we're hibernating those brain cells. So we're protecting them from that horrible sort of lack of oxygen or all the nasty things that happen in the brain when you get that lack of oxygen. And they hibernate for about 12 hours, which is the perfect amount of time to get to the hospital and get the treatment that you need. So you're not getting that cascading out of cell death. So to talk about that in a clinical setting, so the problem with stroke is that paramedics don't know if you've had an ischemic stroke or a hemorrhagic stroke, and the treatment is quite different. So for an ischemic stroke, as I said, you need to remove the clot. Clinicians do that either by delivering a drug which can dissolve the clot, but if you give that to a hemorrhagic stroke patient, they'll bleed out and they'll die. So you need to diagnose the type of stroke and then work out the treatment program. But that takes quite a lot of time. So in all that time, you're getting that cascading out of brain cell death. So really what we're trying to do is stop that, hibernate the neurons, and buy that patient time to get to the hospital and get the treatment that they need. So this is probably the most, I guess, sort of comprehensive study that we've done in a non-human primate model, where we've shown that our drug is able to reduce that total amount of brain cell death by 66%, 24 hours post-stroke. When blood flow is restored, you get a secondary injury. So if you have a thrombectomy procedure where you're mechanically removing the clot, patients often get this secondary injury, and 50% of them actually do worse off, even though you've removed the clot. What this is showing at 28 days post-stroke, we're actually protecting also against that secondary wave of injury. So really encouraging results to date. We've got that 70% reduction in total amount of brain cell death. We also know that our drug doesn't exacerbate bleeding in a hemorrhagic stroke model, so we know that it's safe to deliver in the field. We've done our phase 1, so we know there's no adverse events and it's safe to deliver. But we also know that it can be given with that clot dissolving drug. So any drug development program needs to work with current standard of care. You need to show that your drug doesn't have any adverse interactions with whatever drugs are currently administered to patients. So we've got data, published data, to show that we can administer our drug with the clot dissolving drug. So all this presents as ARG-007 being a really ideal stroke therapeutic. We have very, very little competition in this space. A lot of drugs have gone before us with very little preclinical efficacy data, only working on single mechanisms of action that have failed. We're only one of a handful of companies globally that has been able to progress a neuroprotectant drug into phase 2 clinical trials. And for all the reasons I've listed, we think we've got probably the best shot of anyone to actually get this drug to market. And so what is the market? So the current stroke treatment market globally is $183 billion. Looking at ischemic stroke and actually delivering this, so we've done a lot of work around pricing of our drug. It would be about $10,000 US. It's a single dose that's administered, a single IV infusion. So you can see with about 6,000 people presenting with an ischemic stroke in US hospitals, we're talking about a huge global market that is currently untapped. So currently no one in this market. So what have we achieved today? We're really proud of what we've done. We've worked really hard over the last 2 years to get this drug into a phase 2 clinical trial. We've surrounded ourselves with amazing experts that are able to deliver this phase 2 trial. They've done it before. They've got fantastic clinical expertise. And so we've just recently submitted our ethics to seek approval to undertake that phase 2 trial. So if I just talk about the phase 2 trial and what this means, this is absolutely pivotal for our company. So when we get this data out for the phase 2, this is when we'll start having the licensing and acquisition type of agreements with pharmaceutical companies. So the trial will be conducted solely in Australia in up to 10 hospitals. So we've got PA Hospital in Brisbane. So if you were to have a stroke and present to that hospital over the next 2 years, there's a high chance that you will receive this drug on the clinical trial. It is a blinded trial, so we're taking a single dose of ARG-007 and a placebo control. It's randomised, so we won't know who is receiving what drug, and we'll recruit around 92 patients into that trial. The patient has to be receiving a thrombectomy, so this is a mechanical removal of the clot, and the reason that we do this is because these are the most severe types of stroke, but we're also looking for an efficacy signal for that, what's known as that reperfusion injury, so that second injury you get to the brain when you remove the clot because of the sheer force of blood flow going back into the brain. It is a safety study first and foremost, so we want to prove that the drug is safe to deliver to patients that have had an ischemic stroke, but we will be looking at preliminary efficacy data, so how good is our drug at essentially reducing that total amount of brain cell death, and also looking at functional outcomes of these patients. So we anticipate that we will be dosing first patients in Q1 next calendar year. And as I said, we have an absolutely incredible team running this trial. These people have run global clinical trials. So our lead principal investigator, Graham Hankey, is running a huge trial for Bristol Myers Squibb and Janssen at the moment. So delighted to have these people on board that have the skills we need for a successful trial. So I just want to quickly touch on the additional indications that we're going after. So as I said before, neurological conditions are multifaceted, and what we've realised is that this drug is working in multiple different ways. So it's hibernating the neurons when you're getting what's known as exocytotoxicity, or that reduction in blood flow to the brain. So this is relevant in hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. This is a rare paediatric disease caused by the cord around the neck in infants, preeclampsia in the mother, and it results in horrendous functional outcomes for these babies, often presenting as cerebral palsy, learning difficulties. There's no drugs that are able to protect brain cells. This is an orphan indication. And so we're really excited about the data that we have in HIE. Being an orphan designation, you do get accelerated approval, regulatory approval as well. So we will be going down that pathway. But what the drug also does is it reduces the aggregation of protein. So we put out an announcement this morning showing that our drug reduces alpha-synuclein. This is one of the biggest aggregates of proteins that you see in Parkinson's disease, but also implicated in Alzheimer's disease. So we've got data now to show the drug reduces aggregation of beta amyloid protein, alpha-synuclein protein, and now we're looking at tau as well. Tau's also implicated in TBI, so we recently published some really exciting data in traumatic brain injury. We've got a federal government grant to progress that into concussion, which is also obviously very topical. And Chrissy's standing up, and I've got 15 seconds, so I will conclude. Look, so we're really excited. The next couple of years is going to be absolutely huge for the company. We think we're on to an absolute winner with this drug. It's come out of a decade of research, out of a really, really prestigious research institute in Perth. We're working with world-leading team. We've de-risked the drug. We know it's safe to deliver to humans. So now we just need to see a bit of efficacy to be able to progress it all the way to the clinic. So thank you.
Well done, Liz. Now jump off the stairs, by the stairs would be a good way to go. Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? You can see why it's so hard to keep to that 15 minutes, because with all of our presenters, there's so much more to say, there's so much more to hear. Oh, this fellow's strutting his way up. Would you like to take the stairs, sir? All right, we're going to change gears now from health, and we're going to go across to tech. Sparc Technologies joining us on stage, cutting-edge tech that aims to improve our environment. 3 core areas of development. You will have seen them in the pamphlet in front of you. There's green hydrogen, a graphene-based additive product for paint, and the other one is a sodium-ion battery, next-gen batteries, which could be making lithium slightly less sexy. It's safer, it's cheaper tech. So where do these ideas and the other ideas that drive Sparc come from? This fellow here is Stephen Hunt. He is he's an entrepreneur. He's also the co-founder of Sparc, and he'll let you know where these ideas are coming from and what it could mean for you if you'd like to invest with them. Please make him welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Chrissy, and yeah, certainly some great presentations there and some great investment opportunities. And I'm hoping that with this presentation, you'll see that Sparc is also a great investment opportunity as well. As Chrissy mentioned, it's not biotech, so it's a little bit different from some of the industries which we've just been hearing about. So Sparc Technologies, we really are pioneering some new technologies to disrupt what we believe has the opportunity to transform multi-billion-dollar industries. And one of our real great focuses is really trying to deliver a more sustainable world. We do believe that the areas that we're working on plays right into that sustainability area. So as you'll see, as we're coming up, we'll talk more about those technologies. We've been listed on the ASX for about a bit over 2.5 years now. Not that many shares on issue, with 85 million shares, with a market cap of 23 million. Which is, I think, pretty modest at this point in time, and I'm hoping that you might see that as well as we go through the presentation. One of the key features here on this slide is the University of Adelaide being a substantial shareholder of 7.7%. The University of Adelaide has been involved in Sparc Technologies before we were listed as a shareholder, and to this day remain very supportive and a major contributor to Sparc. Starting to talk about the technologies a little bit here. There are a number of two main areas, if you like: graphene materials and renewable energy. So graphene was very much at the start of Sparc. It was the genesis. It's where we got technology from the University of Adelaide. And we invested in research and development in graphene to basically look to commercialise graphene in coatings. Our most advanced area of that research and development has been in anti-corrosive coatings and also composites. So basically adding graphene in with coatings to give better performance. And we see the same thing with composites as well. Through our relationship with the University of Adelaide, we were introduced to a hydrogen project, one which is a green hydrogen project, and that is quite a different type of technology from electrolysis, which you hear an awful lot about these days. So we see this, what we're doing is the next generation of green hydrogen. Coupled with that, in the renewable energy space, we are focusing on a hard carbon anode for the sodium-ion batteries field. So we see sodium-ion battery chemistry as being a really exciting opportunity. The hard carbon that we're looking to develop is actually from a bio source, so basically waste agricultural product. So once again, this plays into our sustainability thesis. I've spoken a little bit about our key products or key technology areas here. I won't dwell on that one too much more, but I think, as you can see, we basically are working in that graphene area and renewable energy. So some of you may not have heard about graphene previously. Graphene is a newish material. It was only identified or discovered, if you like, back in 2004 by two scientists working out of the Manchester University in the UK. They went on to win the 2010 Nobel Physics Prize as a result of that discovery. So graphene is basically a carbon material. It's in its purest form, it's one atom. And these guys have discovered that it's incredibly strong, 200 times stronger than steel. It's incredibly light and has a huge surface area, 1 gram up to 3,600 square meters. So it's just enormous. It's 10 times more conductive than copper. So what we're trying to do is to get the best out of graphene, all of those wonderful properties, to impart those properties into other materials to make them stronger, lighter, more efficient. As you can see there, the CAGR is forecast to grow at over 30% through to 2030. So it's coming from a very low base, but we're starting to really see it gain traction at the moment. We have developed a lot of expertise in graphene in-house. As I mentioned, the genesis of Sparc was through the University of Adelaide, and we're taking that technology out of the university into Sparc to commercialise it. We have a number of patents in this field, which, of course, anyone in technology recognises that it's about patents. If you don't have patents, it's very hard to be able to protect what you've got. So that's a very important factor for us. We've recently reached the point of actually having a product, which is pretty exciting in the technology space. It's a pretty slow burn to get through the technology phase into commercialisation. We recently commissioned a production facility in Adelaide, whereby we add graphene into an epoxy to produce a graphene additive product. This product is mostly for anti-corrosive coatings, whereby we get up to 40% improvement in the anti-corrosion. One thing that we've, I guess, really identified in the last couple of months or so is the benefits that this brings to asset owners, whether you're a government with infrastructure, defence, oil and gas, mining, etc. Massive infrastructure. These asset owners want to minimise the number of times that they coat their assets, obviously. But what it's also providing is a much better sustainability outcome. And sustainability is becoming an ever-increasing thing that people must try to achieve. And we're seeing that this sustainability benefit that we bring is becoming increasingly attractive to asset owners. So, for example, instead of having to coat an oil tank every 5 years, you might be able to get away with painting it every 7 to 8 years. So, that's quite a substantial, not just cost saving with the performance that you're getting from the better anti-corrosive coating, but by virtue of the fact that you're not painting as often, you are actually saving with sustainability outcomes with reduced carbon footprint. So, you know, when it's all boiled down, that is a massive attraction to a lot of asset owners these days. The size of the addressable market globally is well predicted to be 43 billion by the year 2029. I should add that for a number of years we've actually now been working with a lot of these global coatings companies. So we've been targeting those global coatings companies to take our graphene additive and to use it in their coatings. It's a fairly slow burn with some of these global companies, but after this period of time, we believe that there is real momentum gathering, because it does take work to do anti-corrosive test work. The Australian market is over $1 billion forecast by 2026. So we are talking quite huge markets that we can access here. Moving along to green hydrogen, I'll play a little video here which hopefully gives you a bit of a feel for the technology and how it's different from conventional green hydrogen.
For decades, we've watched our planet be turned upside down, burning fossil fuels to provide the energy required for warming our homes, travelling to work and keeping in touch with loved ones has come at a huge cost to the environment. It turns out the solution has been around us all along, and it's the most common element in the universe: hydrogen. Enter the holy grail of green hydrogen. Sparc Green Hydrogen is Australia's response to the growing demand for sustainable, clean energy. Sparc Green Hydrogen is pioneering a unique system using photocatalytic water splitting technology. The process uses sunlight, water and a photocatalyst to split water without electricity, producing hydrogen and oxygen. Sparc Green Hydrogen does not require expensive electrolyzers or electrical infrastructure, potentially making it cheaper and more flexible than conventional green hydrogen processes. With over 4 years of research conducted at the University of Adelaide and Flinders University, plus support from the federal government, Sparc Technologies, in partnership with Fortescue Future Industries, is working to reshape the future of hydrogen. Sparc Green Hydrogen is targeting low-cost, scalable green hydrogen production. There's no need to choose between saving money and creating a sustainable future for the next generation. We're working to restore the balance. Visit our website sparctechnologies.com.au for more details.
That kind of says it a whole lot better than what I can, but just in essence, in terms of the technology, it's probably not a lot different to photosynthesis or, that you might see with green plants. You know, plants taking in carbon dioxide, expelling oxygen, and the carbon going into the tree. So this is a little bit similar in the fact that we're using sunlight, a photocatalyst, and water, and then the photocatalyst splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen. So really, really simple, basic sort of conceptually, but obviously incredibly difficult scientifically. But the advantages are enormous. The fact that you don't need to make electricity in the first place to produce another form of energy, which a lot of people often say about green hydrogen, you know, intuitively just doesn't make that much sense, because you have to make one form of energy to then produce another. What we're doing is basically just producing energy from sunlight and the water. So we see a huge number of benefits to this technology. Obviously, we believe it's going to be a lot cheaper and more scalable. So you don't need massive wind farms or solar farms to produce the green energy, nor the electrolyzers. So there's a lot of very good benefits there. And really this slide here just goes on to provide a bit more detail around some of those benefits of conventional green hydrogen, as well as blue hydrogen, which uses natural gas to make hydrogen, or the steam methane reforming technology there, which is once again using natural gas, which the world's trying to get away from. Where are we at with that particular project? We've done a lot of work in the laboratory. In fact, the University of Adelaide's been working on it for probably, probably 7 or 8 years now. We have produced a TechKnow economic assessment last year, and we're about to embark upon a on-sun demonstration at the CSIRO in Newcastle. So taking this technology out into the field for the first time, that will be a precursor to building a pilot plant, which we will hopefully kick off late this year, early next year. I mentioned the partners involved there, Sparc at 52%, Fortescue, Future Industries at 20%, and the University of Adelaide at 20% shareholding of that joint venture. I'll just briefly touch on sodium-ion batteries. I mentioned that we're using a sustainable form of carbon, which is waste agricultural production, to produce a hard carbon for the anode in the sodium-ion battery. And once again, the sodium-ion battery could replace a lot of what the lithium-ion battery is currently doing, particularly in industrial applications for energy storage. So I think just finishing off, we see a lot of promise and excitement about what we're doing with the technologies that we have. A couple of the technologies, particularly around the photocatalytic water splitting hydrogen production and the anode for the sodium-ion battery, is very difficult to get any sort of investment exposure to those technologies. They're all held by universities or very large companies. So to have a smaller company such as Sparc that has exposure to those technologies is a little bit unique. And if you like the technology, then yeah, we're one place where you can get that exposure. Thank you.
Yeah. Bugger off, jump off my stage. Well done, Stephen Hunt. It's interesting, isn't it? He's taking a bit of extra time away from me. We're not into that. I'm not allowed to. If you're thinking, for those of you who, this is your first vertical events conference that you've attended, I don't jump in straight away and speak, because what we do with the ASX is we have to have a clean cut of the presentation. So I'm not allowed to say what I'm really thinking at the end. I must remain here and I wait for all of you to clap. So please don't think I'm being rude. We're going back to the world of biotech now, sneaking onto the stage. Volpara, a company that has achieved 3 straight quarters cash flow positive. So this person is very excited about that. We're going to learn about the potential of a tech that's developed in England, headquartered in Wellington, New Zealand, listed on the ASX, run by a fabulous American person, a very passionate American. This is Teri Thomas. She is the CEO of Volpara Health. She's actually retired 3 times. Look at that. But for some bizarre reason, she had, not bizarre reason, she's going to tell us what the reason is. She's so passionate about what Volpara is doing. She was actually brought in to consult for them. She's taken over from the founder, and she's so passionate about saving families from cancer that she just cannot walk away from this. So a couple of questions for her. Why has this caused you to postpone your retirement yet again? And can I ask you whose breasts those are that you're holding down there, and what is the significance? They're actually breasts that she's got. Would you please make Teri very welcome as we listen to Volpara?
Thank you. Now, I will answer the why. I realize that the key to happiness is living in alignment with your own personal values and knowing yourself. And so whether it's nursing or running a company, for me, making a positive impact and being able to care for and really help families and know that my time here was worthwhile is what drives me to work for Volpara. And I'm very proud to work for a very purpose-driven company. And yes, I am holding breasts. They are not my breasts anatomically. However, they are actually real images of breasts, and I'll talk about this again in a second, but why don't we go through and I'll share with you a little bit more about Volpara's journey. Now, I have far too many slides, of course, and I want to make sure that you all are aware. A number of these I'll skip right past. They're meant to be teasers. If you're interested and you want to look at investing in Volpara, the table right outside the door has this slideshow as well as a couple other slides with more detail about who Volpara is and what Volpara does. I will point out a couple things in this slideshow, though. In this case, First of all, we are a software company. We don't make hardware. So if you go in and get a mammogram, you're not going to see the name Volpara on any of the equipment. And we are a disruptive, growing company with enormous opportunity. And as mentioned, we are proud to be, for the third quarter in a row, cash flow positive. And that's an enormous achievement for us for how long we've been around as a company. A couple things on this slide related to us being a SaaS company. We don't have our eggs all in one basket, so there's no single customer that's driving a lot of that revenue. And in fact, our top 10 customers added up together still is only 18% of our revenue. And that long-term visibility in the lower right-hand corner is important for us. That number is going up regularly. So we sign multi-year contracts, the standard of which is 5 years. So we've really got good visibility to our revenue in 1, 2, 3, 4 years ahead of us. So as I mentioned, it's the purpose that drew me to Volpara, saving families from cancer. Although I will tell you, we may change this, quite controversial for our staff, because we really care about this purpose, and it's what drives people to show up and be their best selves at work at Volpara. But we may add saving families from cancer and other devastating diseases, and you'll see why in a minute. So first of all, addressing cancer, it is a growing problem, and 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their lifetime. So it is a very, very common cancer. And unfortunately, the number of women who are diagnosed with breast cancer at a younger age has been increasing. And those cancers that are diagnosed for women in their 30s and 40s tend to be faster growing, more aggressive, and more difficult to treat. So for us as a company, our focus is early detection and assessing the risk of cancer so that a woman can be on a pathway to either early detection or even prevention. If it turns out that someone's carrying a genetic risk that predisposes them to have breast cancer, they can have a prophylactic mastectomy, or they can have a chemo prevention approach. So how we serve our purpose is through our customers, of course. How we drive to profitability, which is something that I've brought to the business in the last 15 months of me being at the helm of Volpara, is also looking at doing this at scale. So we focus on the elephants, and the elephants are large and prestigious healthcare organizations, mostly in the United States. 95+% of our revenue comes from the United States. And these are organizations that take care of thousands and thousands of women each year. So if we do a good job for them, we can touch far more families and save far more lives. This is an example of 6 of the 11 new elephants to join Volpara's game park in the last year. We like to say, I don't like the words targets and things because it does sound a little bit violent. We aim to make an environment in which we provide concrete value for our customers, and they feel like they are happy to refer us to their friends and other big organizations. Now, knowing that I'm in Australia, a lot of people don't have a sense, well, how many elephants are there? And so in response to that common question, we put this together based on the actual targets that our salespeople are working on. The number 220 is actually low, but we have 220 organizations that would bring in $250,000 or more annual recurring revenue per organization. That to us is an elephant. This is a little bit of the list of organizations that our sales team is working with. And as you can see, we've penetrated 21% of the 220 plus targets out there, and there are more. So enormous opportunity for us, even if we're just focusing on those large healthcare organizations and imaging chains. But we do have a nice presence and growing presence in Australia. I'm quite happy to report that it's far more likely, based on the developments of the last couple months, that someone going and getting a mammogram in Australia will be able to learn about their breast density, which I'll come back to in a minute of why that matters, and also putting Volpara's software in to help support good quality mammograms. We are working with Microsoft and likely to bring some new software into Australia over the course of the next year or two as well. So we've got really nice penetration within the privates, as well as now several of the publics. Just about every part of Australia, you can see some bits of Volpara software. That's driving some really strong revenue growth, as you can see. I will point out this wee little bit in the corner. We are approaching 100 million in terms of revenue that is contracted with our customers right now, given that we're migrating from what used to be annual contracts to contracts of 3 to 5 years. So nice growth for us as a company. And we're so proud of this. Just looking at the gap between how much money we were bringing in and how much money we were spending, there was a whole lot more we were spending than we were bringing in, and we've pulled that together. And we've created the infrastructure for a SaaS company to scale. So we've put systems in place, automation, technology to supporting our customers, deployment technology, reorganized our product team, our salespeople are cross-selling across multiple products, integrated our products. We've done an enormous amount of work to be able to scale and be able to bring more customers into the Volpara family without needing to increase significantly the size of our company. So quite proud of that progress. Also quite proud of our Microsoft Partner of the Year Awards. 2 weeks ago, I was in Redmond, Washington, and spent a couple days at Microsoft's headquarters. They're a fantastic partner of ours. We've begun co-selling with Microsoft. We're a design partner with them on security, and security is the #2 issue in healthcare in the United States. When I ask executives what keeps you awake at night, #1, staffing. We don't have enough staff. We don't have enough radiologists. We don't have enough technologists. And #2, I'm terrified that we're going to be the next victim of a cybersecurity attack. And in fact, unfortunately, on the black market, the cost or the value of healthcare information is actually higher than the value of banking information in the US. So us being absolutely the best in the industry with our security and working tightly with our partner Microsoft has been great for us. But the thing I love most about our partnership with Microsoft is actually co-development that we've been doing. And Satya Nadella is an advocate of open innovation, which means compared to working with the likes of Google, which we've done in the past, with Amazon, with others, when we develop new artificial intelligence, we get to own the intellectual property. So Microsoft sent a team of engineers to sit side by side, our machine learning people and our data analytics, and we created a new algorithm so that when you get a mammogram in the future, you can also potentially be sent to a cardiologist if you're at risk of having heart disease. So I'll come back to that in a minute. As a company, we also are very, very engaged in the scientific community, and we're happy to be a founding member of CancerX, which is a private-public partnership in the United States trying to solve the problem of cancer globally. And I'm going to just depart from all of that for a second to make sure you understand when I'm talking about breast density or why did I walk up holding these, why it matters to you. First of all, it matters to all of you, meaning it's not just women that get breast cancer. Both men and women get it. More common in women, but it still happens with men. And when you go and get a mammogram is essentially an X-ray. But different types of mammograms, there's a concept of 2D versus 3D mammograms. You get lots of different slices through and lots of ways to look at a breast image. But that right there is cancer. Right in there is also cancer. One of these you can see quite obviously, that is an A, that's a low density breast. One of these is very, very difficult to see. It's like, you're looking through a snowstorm. That's a dense breast. And when you've got dense breasts, roughly half of the women that get a mammogram have dense breasts. It's difficult to see if there's cancer, but also a higher risk of cancer. And so as a company, we apply our artificial intelligence to objectively measure the density of that breast and provide insights to the doctor when they're looking at this, when they're looking at an X-ray image from the PACS machine. This is the software that Volpara provides. And in this case, it's saying that you've got 9.9%, a very precise measurement of density. By the way, you cannot tell density by feeling or looking at breasts, only from looking at a mammogram image. And in this case, it's considered a C, but it's a low C that feeds into the most accepted risk algorithm out there about someone's risk of getting cancer, which is Teri, and it is the #1 factor in determining someone's risk of cancer. That we pulled together a number of different measures that we assess the quality of the mammogram. Was this done appropriately? Was it positioned right? Was it compressed right? Was the machinery working correctly? We can integrate CAD scores and give that radiologist confidence that their assessment is appropriate and additional information beyond what they can see with their eyes. And so I have these images for a reason. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration has mandated that by September of next year, all women need to be informed of their breast density in the United States by anyone who's doing a mammogram. And by the way, IMED has followed suit and said that they're going to inform all women of their breast density in Australia, and we're seeing more and more interest in doing that here. The challenge is, when you look at that bell curve, that is breast density across a population of women. And as you may notice, the highest number of women are sitting at the top of the curve, which is sitting there on that line. So, a good portion of women will be told that your breasts are not dense, go home, nothing to worry about. And then there's going to be a chunk that are told actually that breast density is high, and we recommend that you get an ultrasound or an MRI or some further looks. Might even be get additional testing, get mammograms at a higher frequency. But when you look at these, even as a radiologist who can look at lots of different images and look from lots of different angles, one of these is in the not dense category, one of these is in the dense category. You cannot tell with the naked eye the difference between the two. So that's a foundational component of the software that we provide, is an objective measurement. And what we've seen in the industry is that even radiologists looking at the very same image different times of day may characterize it differently when it's on that line. Moving gears a little bit, there are other factors that impact if somebody's likely to get diagnosed with cancer, and one of those is hereditary risk, and most women are unaware of their risk. So we provide software to identify that. We're engaging more directly with clinicians and with consumers so that they can advocate for their own health care. We provide some AI on the image to provide good quality feedback to the technologists so they can do their very best mammograms and save time in reporting, which drives purchases of our software with concrete ROI. We also do more than breast, so we've got a number of models for endometrial, colorectal, et cetera. And we lead the industry in science and innovation. So with that new breast arterial calcification algorithm, when someone gets a mammogram, we can actually see the arteries, and we can figure out, is someone at risk of heart disease, which is important because heart disease actually kills 10 times more women than breast cancer. And it's called the silent killer because a lot of women have heart attacks without actually having the symptoms of a heart attack. And so that's what I'm here to share with you. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks, Teri. I think you covered off on all of those, including why you're holding those breasts. It's all perfectly clear. Go and have a chat with her. It's really interesting tech. We're going to stay with the fight against cancer now. This is our last presentation before morning tea. We're going to a different angle, prevention. Bookending session 1 for TechKnow 23. Imugene Ltd vaccines have achieved amazing results in the fight against infectious diseases. Could they prevent cancer? Imugene is focused on developing new immunotherapy drugs which modulate and train our immune system to win the battle against cancer. And to share the story of their innovative and disruptive technologies, would you please make welcome their CTO, Dr. Nick Eade.
Thanks, Chrissy. So I'm filling in today for my CEO, Leslie Chong, who's got a bad virus. She's got the flu. At Imugene, we are producing a good virus, which we hope, as I'll share today, is actually looking at curing cancer. And at Imugene, as Chrissy said, our drugs modulate, treat your immune system, teach your immune system to fight back against cancer. And this is a hot area. In the last decade, the field of immunotherapy has blossomed where the word cure for the first time has actually been mentioned amongst oncologists that treat patients with this new form of treatment called immunotherapy. I mean, 50 years ago, there was only chemotherapy, which was essentially poisoned your cells to kill the cancer, and of course, the many side effects. You could cut the cancer out with surgery, or you could zap the cancer with radiation. The fourth pillar is this new era of immunotherapy, and you're going to hear a few companies today talk about this area where, for the first time ever, cure is a possibility. So there are several types of immunotherapies. Imugene is involved in oncolytic viruses and cancer vaccines, which again modulate the immune system to treat your cancer, clear your cancer, remember the cancer and clear it again if it comes back. I'll also talk briefly today about cell therapy, and you'll hear some more cell therapy presentations today, which are giving amazing response rates for curing cancer. Upwards of 60, 70, 80% now of many blood cancers can be cured with cellular therapy. I'm going to talk a little bit today about how Imugene is transferring that unbelievable cure rate from blood cancers, liquid cancers, to solid cancers, which represent a very much larger part of the cancer market. So for all of what I'm going to talk to you today, but a couple of take-home points from our investment highlights is that we have over $150 million in the bank, which is quite an enviable position for a biotech company at the moment. It gives us 3 years runway to carry out about all the clinical trials that I'll be describing today. And all those clinical trials, importantly for us, we run them in the US under US FDA. The US is the biggest market for pharmaceuticals, and hence that's our customer at the end of the day. A big pharma company that we hope will one day take on our work to take it to market. Most of them are multinationals based in the US, looking at the US market. So it's very important, we feel, that we run our trials under an FDA IND in the US. And we also run trials elsewhere in the world, including Australia. So the 3 areas that we work in teaching your immune system to clear the cancer is we have cancer vaccines, where we vaccinate the patient to produce antibodies which help clear the cancer. We also have an oncolytic virus, a good virus, where we've designed a virus that specifically and potently only infects cancer cells. And well, I'm also going to talk about how we've used that virus to allow us to combine with cell therapy to treat solid tumours with the success rate that has been seen in liquid cancers. So an oncolytic virus, if you think about it, certain types of viruses only infect certain types of cells. Hepatitis viruses only infect liver cells. Meningitis viruses only infect brain cells. It's not unreasonable to expect that there'd be a virus you can design or find that only infects cancer cells. And Professor Yuman Fong at the City of Hope, our inventor of what we call CF33, our oncolytic virus, he conducted an experiment about 5 years ago where he mixed a whole number of different viruses together and allowed them to trade their genetic material, which produced a number of clones of different types of viruses, where he then screened those viruses up against what we call the NCI 60 cancer cell line. So at the National Cancer Institute in America, there's a group of cell lines that you can test your anti-cancer drug against. There's 60 of them. And his interest was only in a newly designed virus that killed all 60 of them. And he found it, and it was virus number 33. He then tested that virus in a number of animal models, and multiple different types of animal models: lung, pancreatic, liver, brain. They all cured the cancer. And so then he took that cancer into clinical trials with Imugene. So an oncolytic virus specifically and potently only infects cancer cells. It does that by infecting the cell, replicating only in a cancer cell, exploding that cancer cell, not only so killing the cancer cell by exploding the cell, but when that happens, the cancer cell releases a whole truckload of nasty internal antigens, we call them, that the immune system then recognizes and then remembers to start clearing cancers in other parts of the body. And there's only been one oncolytic virus approved for therapy, and that's an oncolytic virus from Amgen in the US called T-VEC, which is approved for melanoma. And we're now developing our CF33 virus in both breast cancer, triple-negative breast cancer with the City of Hope in the US, and also a large trial where we're testing that virus in the clinic now in patients with multiple types of different metastatic advanced solid tumours. And we're well and truly advanced on that trial now. In the next 12 months, we will have this trial finished and we'll have the answer as to what we think, and according to Professor Fong in radio interviews just last week at BioShares, he has indicated that what he is seeing and what we are seeing is that translation of cure of using this virus in preclinical animals is now translated into the clinic with our human patients. And so we're very excited about completing this trial in the next 12 months and reporting on its readouts. So I mentioned earlier about cell therapies being a miracle cure for blood cancers. These are things like lymphomas, leukemias. But there's no such cure rates really for solid tumours. Their response rates are sort of down the 20 to 30% of treatments. We'd love to be able to lift the response rates that we see in the liquid tumours, the blood cancers, into these solid tumours, and we can use our virus, we feel, to do that, where, as I said earlier, our virus selectively and potently only infects cancer cells. Now, if we can, there's a certain target on those blood cancers that enable the cell therapies to target those blood cancer cells and essentially wipe them out with incredibly high response rates. And it's a target called CD19. Using our virus, what we do is infect the cancer cells. The virus can be programmed then to put a flag of CD19 up on the solid tumour cancer cell. And this is essentially what we're about to start a clinical trial in. And then we're going to hit it with a CAR T or a CD19 targeting biologic drug to completely eliminate and eradicate that solid tumour. As I said, the response rates of these cell therapies in blood cancers has been amazing, where for the first time ever, people have been cured completely by these treatments, particularly in leukemias and lymphomas. And we're now looking to, and yeah, here's the classic example, Emily Whitehead, as a young child, 11 years ago now, received the first cell therapy treatment and is still cancer-free today. And now we're looking to translate that so-called CAR T cell therapy. It's a living drug where your cells are taken from the body, they're changed to then to target this specific flag that's on blood cancer cells and then reinfused back to give those incredible response rates. We're now looking to translate that into solid tumours, which basically represents 90% of the oncology market. And we recently received our FDA IND clearance to commence that clinical trial. So we will be commencing this trial later this year in the US and then in Australia in subsequent months. And so this was our approach, to use our oncolytic virus to selectively and potently target only the cancer cells, shuttle up onto the surface of that cancer cell a flag, which can then be used with a CD19 cellular therapy or a CD19 targeting biological drug to then target those cancer cells which have been infected only with the virus. And we've conducted a lot of preclinical research in collaborations with companies that have these CD19 targeting cell therapies. Of great point is Arabella, our friends from Australia, who have an amazing natural killer cell technology that you'll hear a little bit more about actually in the next talk straight after the coffee break. We're collaborating with Arabella to use their CD19 targeting natural killer cell to then target our cancer cells that have been infected with our oncolytic virus to flag that CD19 flag up onto the surface. We also collaborate with Amgen, who have a CD19 targeting agent called Blincyto, and we're going to be taking that into the clinic too at the end of this year to use in combination with our oncolytic virus to translate those unbelievable response rates we see in blood cancers, cures, to multiple solid tumour types. So there is more than one way, though, to modulate your immune system, to teach it to find and then eradicate cancers. One of the greatest success stories in treating cancers over the last 20, 30 years has been a class of drug called monoclonal antibodies. And these are antibodies that specifically target a flag on a cancer cell that has been overexpressed in a particular type of cancer. And they've really helped a lot of patients, particularly with breast cancer and gastric cancer over the years. But we think, and two of these examples are Keytruda and Opdivo. They target a target on your immune cells called PD-1, which is basically a target which is the brake or an accelerator on your immune system to either accelerate and eliminate a cell or put the brakes on to remove it. And one of the problems with cancers are that they've taught the immune system to say, there's nothing to see here. The brake's on. These drugs release the brake. And in fact, yeah, they're multi-billion-dollar blockbuster drugs now. And they're the types of drugs that cured the likes of Ron Walker in Melbourne, Jared Ruffhead of AFL football fame, of their melanomas. Very successful drugs. But we think there's a better way to mimic these types of drugs where, well, instead of making the drugs, which are incredibly expensive and have certain toxicity side effect profiles, we think there's a better way where we could teach your body through vaccination to make those drugs in vivo. And what we've found through a process of what we call active immunisation, where instead of having to go in every 3 weeks to get an infusion of a very expensive and potentially toxic side effect drug, we can just vaccinate the patient in the same way you get vaccinated against the flu or COVID, where we teach the body to make up a supply of those cancer-fighting antibodies. And we call them our cancer vaccine platform. And we've shown now in clinical trials that it works. So we've conducted a phase 2 trial now in HER2-positive gastric cancer. So when I say HER2-positive, that means the gastric cancer's got a particular marker on it which makes it more aggressive and grow much more quicker. And if you are a HER2-positive overexpresser, your prognosis is poorer. And we've been able to show that through our active vaccination of our patients, that we've built up a really strong antibody response, which has led to multiple cures in these cancers. So I'm just going to now conclude with where we're going with these immunotherapies is to our exit strategy, which is what obviously everyone is interested in. We're in active discussions now with Big Pharma regularly on various ways to license and or sell our technologies to them. And finally, why Imugene? Well, we've got a very diversified patent and technology platform that, as I said at the beginning, all our drugs are teaching your immune system to fight back and win the war against cancer. And we think the next 12 months for us is going to be incredibly exciting because all of those programs I've talked about today, they're reading out in the next 12 months. And so I'll just leave you with that it's a 12-month play really for Imugene right now. And I encourage you to take a look at this.
I'll let you have an extra minute, Nicholas, because you're here looking after the one that's got the disease. So you've done bloody well to step in at the last minute. Would you thank him again, please, everyone? Thanks, Nick. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, we have got 7 presentations under our belt, 13 presentations to go. And the next session, we're looking at everything from robotics, robots building walls. And I think we're finishing off today with an Aussie company that I think is really interesting. They've got a $150 million market cap and they're paying a dividend, and they've been doing it for the last few years, which is something a little bit different. So go and enjoy morning tea, and I'll ring the bell and round you